When we Chinese learn English, hello is definitely the word we'll learn at the first lesson. Similarly, when you first start learning Chinese, the first lesson will also definitely teach you how to say hello in Chinese, which is
你好
you represents
你
and
好
conveys the meaning of okay, good, or well, but in this context, it serves as a greeting. I was thinking, if we can't confirm the origin of the character,
你
perhaps clues can be found in the evolution of
我
which means I and me in English. After all, the concept of you and me forms the most intimate relationship among human beings across all cultures. Oracle bone inscriptions are the writings engraved on tortoise shells and animal bones by ancient Chinese people around 3100 to 3400 BC. Oracle bones inscriptions were first discovered in 1899 and are now considered as the earliest written language of the Chinese nation. Up to now, a total of about 150,000 pieces of oracle bones have been discovered, including more than 35,000 pieces that were excavated through scientific archaeological research. The number of oracle bone inscriptions that have been discovered so far has exceeded 4,000 words, but only about 2,000 words have been identified. On these unearthed tortoiseshell fragments, we can observe, at that time, different ways of writing the character.
我
From the picture shown here, we can see some of them look the earlier form like axe. A relatively more prevailing viewpoint regarding these oracle bone inscriptions is that they resemble ancient weapons with handles and hooks, specifically large axes with a row of sharp serrated teeth. These were ferocious tools used in slave societies for executing criminals, killing people, and dismembering animals. Some explanations within this viewpoint even go as far as to embellish the details further. This saying implies that people became more bellicose. On the basis of the original axe, another weapon called
哥
was added. On the right side of the screen, the oracle bone inscription of the character
哥
shows a restored figure of an unearthed artifact of
哥
a person with a rake in his left hand and a
哥
in his right hand forms the rudimentary shape of the character.
我
Another saying suggests that the character
我
originated from a farming tool akin to a rake. Indeed, as we delve into oracle bone inscriptions, we can discern that the shape of
我
increasingly resembles a rake. In ancient times, people utilized rakes for various purposes such as cultivating rice paddies, drying grains, and even as a weapon against foreign invaders who sought to encroach upon their homes. In essence, the prototype of
我
served both as a farming tool and a weapon. Personally, I am inclined to favor this saying, as it aligns more closely with common life experiences and also manifests a pronounced sense of territory and protection that is inherently tied to the self. By the 200s SBC, the character form of
我
began to evolve further. The weapon depicted on its left side gradually transformed into the shape of the Chinese character for hand,
手
while the right side took on a smoother form, making it impossible to discern the original weapon-like appearance of
哥
This might suggest that after the establishment of a unified country, people's lives stabilized significantly, with fewer wars and conflicts, leading to a gradual easing of vigilance. Later, as Chinese characters evolved towards the standardized square form, all strokes became more robust, and
我
took on its current appearance, functions as a personal pronoun, hardly associating with weapon or farm tool anymore. Having understood the origin of the character,
我
let's revisit the hypotheses regarding the origin of the character.
你
As mentioned earlier, one hypothesis is that it originated from a tool used for winding silk, while another suggests it represents bundled arrows. So, you know how the character
我
comes from tools that could double as weapons and farming tools. Well, think about.
你
Do you reckon it could have started out from a friendly or pleasant experience? I'm thinking its origin might not be all warm and fuzzy like that. It could actually be rooted in confrontational or even hostile relationships. Maybe it even came from something like a weapon. Why do I say that? Let's first examine the composition of the modern character.
你
In Chinese characters, the left side represents the radical,
人
which refers to human being, and the right side is the character.
二
The radical is easy to understand. It came from side image of a standing person representing human being. But what does
二
signify here? Let's take a closer look at the origin of.
二
At first glance, the oracle bone inscription for the character,
二
which was U in ancient Chinese, can be quite confusing. What is this depiction supposed to represent? If we assume that
你
originated from a tool used for winding thread, there is a lack of any tangible evidence to suggest that such a tool ever existed historically. On the other hand, if we adopt the first hypothesis that the origin of the character
你
is a cluster of arrows, there are very convincing arguments to support it. Why is this explanation more plausible? Because in Chinese, there is another character,
二
carries same pronunciation of old form of,
你
and shares the cylinder shape of the same. This
二
has been used for over 2,000 years to refer the concept of relatively close distance. The radical
之
at the bottom of this character means feet stepping on the ground, go, walk, or run. The meaning has remained unchanged since then. It is very common for Chinese characters, which share similar shapes, often have closely related origins. Therefore, I believe that the character
你
in its old written form must be related to the concept of distance. In old days, people had often to carry bows and arrows for either battle or hunting, and archery always involved a certain range. Therefore, it is possible that the character
你
might originally be used by ancient people to express someone standing not too far away from oneself, and referred as you. In old times, the one holding the weapon and guarding the territory was,
我
while within the range of an arrow, the one being attacked or defended against might be.
你
Later, based on the image of several arrows, this character evolved into a grid-like shape. Doesn't it resemble a fishing net or a hunting net? If a person were placed inside the net, it would be akin to enclosing the other in a cage. However, the evolution of this character eventually did away with the cage and net imagery, and the person was released. But wait, do not be happy too early, for because the modern radical of this character
人
had not yet been added. This suggests that at that time, the concept of equal in human treatment had not yet been achieved. You might be just viewed as an object in a distance of archery away. It was only after a long time that the radical
人
was finally added to the side of the character.
二
From then on,
我
and
你
seemed enjoy equal social status. But I don't think so. Haven't you noticed that the pronunciation of the ancient character
二
representing you is so different from the modern?
你
So where did the pronunciation of the character
你
come from? Personally, I believe it was borrowed from another Chinese character, which is
你
I looked up the origin of the character.
你
It turns out that this character means child, starting point, or distant. This makes sense, as a person standing in the distance looks smaller. Furthermore, The expression
你
still conveys the idea of being the weaker or inferior party, with a suspicion of belittling the other. As human civilization progressed, both characters of
我
and
你
eventually evolved into ones without any hostile connotations, and when people first meet each other, they put down the weapons. You and me finally can say hello to each other as a greeting. The Chinese phrase
你好
can be translated into English as hi, how do you do, how are you, or hello. If we break down the character,
好
on the left side is
女
meaning female, and on the right side is
子
originally meaning baby, kid, child. Although you have already learned about the origin of the character,
好
it's worth delving deeper into the origins of the characters.
女
And
子
the character
女
originally depicted a woman kneeling on the ground. Later, a horizontal stroke was added above her head, which represented a type of hairpin called
簪子
and it is used to help women tie up their hair. This seemingly simple yet practical hair accessory has been used by Chinese women from ancient times to the present day. Later, the character
女
was no longer depicted a woman kneeling on the ground, but rather standing with her arms crossed. At beginning, the arms were depicted as hanging down, but as Chinese characters evolved into the square script, the arms were extended, resulting in the appearance we see today. The evolution of the character.
女
Doesn't it somewhat resemble the transformation of women's social status, from a subordinate and lower position to an independent individual? Before learning about the origin of the character,
子
let's observe the characteristics of human infants. Don't infants tend to have larger heads compared to that of the adult? Now, let's take a look at the depiction of a baby in ancient Chinese oracle bone inscriptions. The square shape represents the large head of the baby, the vertical line represents the body, and the horizontal lines, extending to both sides, represent the baby's arms. You might ask, where are the baby's legs and feet? In fact, the earliest depiction of
子
in ancient Chinese oracle bone inscriptions referred to an infant swaddled in blankets, with the lower half of the body wrapped up. Later, the square-shaped large head in the character
子
gradually evolved into a triangle, eventually becoming the abstract appearance we see today. In summary, in Chinese,
好
which means good or well, is composed of
女
and.
子
It is common sense, crossing all the cultures, that the mother-child relationship is one of the most beautiful human emotions. It is the foundation of the continuity of human beings. So isn't it quite reasonable that Chinese people use the combination of these two characters to express beautiful things and feelings?
你好
And
您好
are both greetings used when people meet for the first time. In English, they can be translated as how are you? How do you do? Or hello. The difference lies in the characters
你
and,
您
which look and sound similar. As for their usage, you can probably guess most of it from the two drawings here.
你好
Is used for greeting peers, people of lower status, and in informal daily interactions. For example, at gatherings with friends or casual greetings among colleagues.
您好
Is typically used in formal settings or when greeting elders, professionals like doctors or teachers, and people of higher status. It shows respect and consideration for the other person, suitable for first meetings or situations requiring a certain level of etiquette. When referring to the second person, in China, there are indeed significant regional differences in the use of
你
and.
您
Generally, people in northern regions, particularly in areas such as
北京、天津、河北、山西大同、山东、
and northern parts of
河南、安徽、江苏、
have a strong preference for frequently using
您、
to refer to the second person as a sign of respect and politeness. Meanwhile, people in southern regions tend to use
你、
in most cases. How did the difference come from? My personal guess is that North China has been serving as the cradle of Confucianism. In ancient China, the political centers of most dynasties were located in the north, where etiquette in interpersonal interactions was held in high regard, leading to greater caution in word choice and phrasing when speaking. In contrast, the south was primarily an undeveloped wilderness in ancient China and later developed into a commercial hub. As a result, people interacted more casually and were not bound by as many elaborate rituals and formalities. Now, let's look into the origin of the character.
您、您、
Is formed by adding
心、
under.
你、
So, what does this
心、
mean? It represents the physical organ of the heart. In ancient Chinese script known as oracle bone inscriptions, the character
心、
depicts the outline of a human heart, with two simplified diagonal strokes added to indicate the texture of the heart muscle and blood vessels. At this stage, the character
心、
directly reflects the ancient people's rudimentary understanding of human anatomy, despite being crudely etched. It vividly showcases the immediacy and simplicity of pictographic script. Later in
经文、
bronze script, the character
心、
further evolved by adding a dot in the center, symbolizing the blood flowing through the heart. This not only demonstrates the ancients' meticulous observation of nature, but also embodies their profound understanding of the heart as the symbol of life's core. Later in
篆文、
the seal script, the form of
心、
further evolved as more balanced lines and smoother strokes. A curved line added at the top, pointing to the right, symbolizes the blood vessels connected to the heart, making the overall shape closer to the physiological structure of the heart. About 2,000 years ago, the form of the character
心、
of
楷书、
called regular script was finally formed and has largely stabilized into what we see today. In both Chinese and English, as well as in all languages crossing the world, the meaning of the heart has evolved from a purely physiological organ to embody abstract human emotions, often associated with love, sincerity, honesty, and the like. Chinese is no exception. By adding the radical of
心、
which refers to heart, beneath the character of
你、
it becomes
您、
which expresses respect towards the person being addressed. When Chinese people say
您好、
it means that they greet others with more respect.